This is the Trade Finance Distribution Initiative podcast, where we focus on the growing business community of trade finance stakeholders. I'm Andy Duckworth, and this is a new branch of our podcast, where we introduce you to some of the people speaking at our Trade Finance Investor Day in October. Today's guest is from the International Chamber of Commerce, an organisation which represents 45 million companies worldwide. Chris Southworth is Secretary General at the ICC United Kingdom. Great to have you here, Chris.
Thank you.
First, can you give us a little background on you? How did you get to where you are now?
Yeah, so my background in the context of this conversation is really as Secretary General of the International Chamber of Commerce, and our obviously sort of fundamental purpose as an organisation is all about trade and making sure that trade is as seamless and as frictionless as possible. That includes trade finance as well. And then I'm the co-chair of the Legal Reform Advisory Board at the ICC Digital Standards Initiative. So I'm one of the people helping to drive this global campaign now on removing legal barriers so that trade can finally go paperless and digital, and trade finance with it as well, as the future now becomes, a much simpler, much cheaper, much faster for everybody in the finance and trade industries.
Great. So you wear lots of hats. You're an expert on creating modern digital trade ecosystems and an advisor to the UK government on the digitisation of trade. And let's talk about something you just mentioned there, the Electronic Trade Documents Act. So the UK's just passed a bill which makes digital trade documents legal for the first time. So that's a huge step, game-changing.
Yeah, this is absolutely monumental, I think, for trade. It's a very niche piece of law. And if you actually look at the Act, it's a page and a half. And the key bits are really one small clause that says that digital or commercial trade document information is now recognised in digital form as well as paper. So it's not mandatory. It doesn't say stop using paper, but it has this crucial recognition point. And then it sets out some provisions for reliable systems and how that's enabled and how that's utilised. The really important point here is that when we set off on the journey to help digitalise trade 5-6 years ago, it was very clear that there are, what we called at the time key pillars of work. We had to remove legal barriers, which is what's just happening now in the UK. We have to set interoperable standards so that we all adopt the same digital formats so that information can flow between the private sector, the public sector, and crucially across with different jurisdictions. And that is very difficult to do if the law says you still have to use paper. Because the sort of rule of thumb in trade is if all documents go paperless, everyone goes digital. But if it's a mixed economy, then actually everyone reverts to what they know, which is paper-based. And that actually we can see in the data because the EU is the best example of this, actually. It's one of the most sophisticated customs and trade facilitation communities with a single market, but only 1% of commercial trade documents are handled in digital form. And that's partly because there's been a terrific amount of good investment on customs and infrastructure, but the laws say that commercial trade documents have to be on paper. So that's the legal piece. And it's actually much bigger than that because the whole trading system has been operating really effectively exactly the same for 200 years. All this kind of paper and bureaucracy is mounted up to, there's approximately 40 different documents that people are using depending on what industry you're in. It's enormously inefficient and bureaucratic because the law says that you have to use paper. What's happening and what we're at the cusp of now, and I'll come back to the Act and the role that plays in global trade, is it's unlocking that final barrier to unleash innovation into the market because we know the technology is there, but it's not operating at scale. We know that the system is super inefficient and we all want to go paperless, but it's all held back by our laws saying you have to use bills of lading on paper. So when you look at the economic numbers and the benefits, they look incredibly big. It's 9 trillion trade growth across the G7. Well, the reason it's big is because of all the inefficiency of the past, whereas we're actually living in 2023. And so we're leaping into 2023 in one fell swoop. And what's also exciting about English law is the influence it plays in the global trading system. ultimately, every government needs to do this. We know that. However, what English law provides for the very first time is a legal environment at scale, at global scale, for companies now to digitalize supply chains and digitalize full transactions. 60% of global trade finance operates on English law, 80% of bills of lading operate on English law. Most of the marine and marine insurance and shipping industries operate on English law, and companies use it all over the world. So this is really, really exciting because it gives us scale. It now creates that enabling environment for innovation to come in at scale and pace, and we can start stripping out inefficiencies, and it will breathe an enormous amount of oxygen into the system and encourage everyone else to do the same. So it's game changing. I describe it as a sort of Apple Microsoft moment when those two companies standardized their operating procedures and you could move a Word document from one to the other. Well, that's where we are on trade. And what we're going to now see, I think, over the next 5 to 10 years is just a tremendous revolution in a good way of what's long overdue as we all move into the digital economy.
And speaking of timescales, when can we start seeing the benefits of this, and what are the next steps?
The Act comes into force in late September, the 20th of September, and from that day onwards, anyone using English law can now start removing paper and begin the process of getting these efficiencies into their systems. And then from our perspective, our focus now changes in the UK from advocating for legal change to now implementing. And this has implications across UK borders, trade corridors, public and private sector trading systems. So we know this is the big challenge. This is the heavy lifting really now with companies. And, we just got to go at it methodically, but we know the prize is big. And we know that we need to do this in collaboration with everybody else. But it's an enormous opportunity for the UK to really lead or continue leading at global level and really take this huge pain point away. 35% of SMEs typically complain about paper and bureaucracy, and that's fairly consistent globally as well. But we also know there's a lot of appetite in the market to get rid of this pain. And obviously in a UK context, we know that our borders are in need of that digital revolution just as much as everybody else is around the world. So it's really exciting. Next phase is going to take some time, but the ICC goal is to digitalize 60 to 80% of world trade by 2026. It's really ambitious, and I can't see why we can't do that from the UK as long as we all put our minds to it and work together, because we have to in a way to then capitalize the benefits.
Yes, we'll wait and see for that, Chris. Now, you're speaking at our big event, the Trade Finance Investor Day. And for those who don't have their ticket yet, it's taking place at the Grove Hotel and Country Club just outside London on the 19th and 20th of October. Now, Chris, you'll be presenting on the legal revolution in trade financing and digital assets. So what kind of things will you be analysing? What are you going to be talking about?
Yeah, it's really interesting in the context of the law that that's obviously the central piece is capturing everyone's imagination at the moment. And unfortunately, in a way, the law, the way it's titled, the Electronic Trade Documents Act, means that we tend to focus a little bit too much on the trade document aspect. Actually, there's another half of this law that actually will unleash innovation in the finance market. Not just the use of new financial instruments that are cheaper, quicker and faster, like electronic promissory notes, but also the whole trade finance system, because we know the banks are absolutely tied up in knots around AML and KYC bureaucracy. We know that trade finance could be cheaper and more accessible, but the compliance thresholds are really high, and that's a real problem. So we've got a really exciting moment here to really look at this whole finance piece and really improve it. Anyone in finance and trade finance knows that we've all been wanting this to happen for a long time. Well, I would argue strongly that we're there, and now is the moment to start to make this happen. So, and it's not just about trade, interestingly, either. There are lots of applications of these new financial instruments that will benefit all sorts of different areas, including local authority payments and driving local retail and high street development and enterprise at local community level. So, it's a revolution that is beyond just trade finance. But in the world of trade finance, we can do this so much smarter than the way we're doing it at the moment. And that's not a criticism of the banking or finance industry at all. It's that we're working with quite old regulatory regimes that don't recognize that we are operating in the new modern environment that's mostly digital. And so we've got a really good opportunity to be smarter in the way we do it and create a lot more opportunity. And importantly, ultimately, it's about releasing more finance back into the market, particularly for small companies.
And finally, Chris, why do you think this event is important in getting people together?
Well, I don't think we can talk about this enough. All of these opportunities need to be socialized. The finance industry is particularly creative and innovative. The more we talk about it, I don't think we all know all the opportunities yet. They're coming all the time as new people bring new ideas. So this event is absolutely perfectly timed because the legal environment will be there, and it's now really about exploring the opportunity, which is really, really exciting. We can do things for the first time, really, from that event onwards, and it's about getting us together and using that intellectual capacity to really think this through and explore some of those opportunities. It's very, very exciting.
Yes, indeed. Let's leave it there, Chris, and not give too much away before your appearance at the Trade Finance Investor Day. Remember, it's at the Grove Golf and Spa Resort, about an hour from London. Go to tradefinancedistribution.com, click the link at the top of the website for all the details, agenda. Remember, those ticket prices include accommodation. Chris Southworth from the International Chamber of Commerce, thank you for your time today, and I'll see you in October.
Thank you very much.